Hello, beautiful soul. How are you feeling today? What if you started believing that everything always works out for you? That opportunities chase you, money finds you, and life is always on your side? That's the power of the lucky girl syndrome. And today I'm going to show you how to activate it in your life. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because these affirmations can start shifting the way you see yourself and the way life responds to you. And if you enjoy content that helps you manifest confidence, abundance, and the life you truly deserve, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next affirmations. And trust me, you can thank me later. Many people wonder how certain individuals seem to achieve their goals more easily than others. In recent years, discussions about mindset and neuroscience have suggested that the way the brain is conditioned to interpret reality can strongly influence perception, behavior, and outcomes. From this perspective, achievement is not always explained purely by external circumstances. Instead, it can also be influenced by an internal predisposition, the belief that it is possible to achieve what one desires in life. This idea is often connected to what has become widely known as lucky girl syndrome. Lucky girl syndrome refers to the belief that someone is intrinsically lucky in life. It is the mindset that things tend to work out, that opportunities arrive at the right time, and that positive outcomes are naturally drawn toward a person's path. Within this perspective, life is viewed almost like a story in which the individual is the main character. Rather than expecting failure or disappointment, the expectation becomes that circumstances will ultimately align in one's favor. In many ways, this mindset can function as the opposite of anxious thinking patterns. When someone believes that life is constantly working against them, attention often becomes focused on problems, threats, and potential rejection. In contrast, when someone believes that they are inherently fortunate, even difficult experiences can be interpreted differently. Events that might traditionally be considered negative may be reframed as experiences that contribute to growth, resilience, or personal development. The mindset does not deny that challenges exist. Instead, it changes the meaning attached to those challenges. This reframing process is often connected to psychological mechanisms that influence perception and decision-making. With that in mind, several principles are commonly associated with cultivating the lucky girl mindset. Number 1, set your intention. The first step involves setting a clear intention. This goes beyond a simple affirmation. In neuroscience, this process is often associated with the reticular activating system, RAS, a network in the brain responsible for filtering incoming information and determining what reaches conscious awareness. Human beings are constantly surrounded by an enormous amount of sensory information. Because the brain cannot process everything at once, it filters stimuli based on what it considers important. Intentions and expectations play a major role in determining what the brain notices. A common example illustrates this phenomenon. When someone begins thinking about buying a red car, they often start noticing red cars everywhere. The number of red cars on the road has not suddenly increased. Rather, the brain has tuned its attention toward that particular detail. In a similar way, when a person repeatedly reinforces the belief that positive outcomes tend to happen to them, the brain begins scanning the environment for experiences that confirm that expectation. Statements such as "things tend to work out," "good opportunities appear," or "the right path becomes clear" can act as signals that guide attention and perception. Over time, this mental orientation can influence decision-making and awareness, encouraging individuals to notice opportunities, avoid harmful situations, and respond more constructively to the events around them. Number 2, romanticize your routine. The second principle involves transforming daily routines into experiences that feel meaningful and enjoyable. Daily life is largely composed of habits and repeated behaviors. In many ways, a person's lifestyle is defined by the routines they maintain. When everyday activities are approached as burdensome or monotonous, motivation tends to decrease. However, when these same activities are reframed as intentional and aesthetically meaningful, they can become easier to sustain. Psychologically, this process can be effective because the brain does not always strongly distinguish between an imagined, emotional experience and a physical one. When simple tasks are approached with creativity, appreciation, or a sense of narrative, they can feel more rewarding. For example, ordinary activities such as cleaning a space, preparing food, or organizing daily tasks can be experienced as small rituals that contribute to a larger and more intentional lifestyle. When routine actions are associated with positive emotional states, they become more repeatable. Over time, these repeated behaviors accumulate and shape long-term outcomes. Health, financial stability, productivity, and personal fulfillment are often the result of consistent habits rather than isolated moments of motivation. For this reason, reframing routine activities as meaningful experiences can play an important role in building a life that feels both intentional and fulfilling. Number 3. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is sometimes dismissed as a purely emotional or superficial practice. But research in psychology and neuroscience suggests that it can have measurable effects on the brain. Studies conducted at institutions such as the University of California, Davis, and the Greater Good Science Center indicate that consistent gratitude practices can influence neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and adapt. When individuals regularly acknowledge what they appreciate, whether through writing, reflection, or verbal expression, the brain gradually becomes more attuned to positive experiences and supportive circumstances. Over time, this process trains the mind to identify patterns of what is functioning well, rather than focusing primarily on problems or perceived deficiencies. This shift in attention can reshape perception. Instead of constantly searching for what is missing, the brain begins to recognize resources, opportunities, and elements of life that are already contributing to well-being. For example, when someone desires improvements in areas such as transportation, housing, or financial security, expressing appreciation for what currently exists can reinforce a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. From a neurological perspective, gratitude strengthens the brain's tendency to detect supportive experiences in the environment. Number 4. Embody your desired energy. Another fundamental concept associated with the lucky girl mindset is the idea of embodying the identity one wishes to develop. Lasting transformation rarely occurs through thought alone. Instead, change tends to happen when behaviors align with a new identity. Psychologists often refer to this principle as identity-based habits. When individuals consistently view themselves as a particular type of person, such as someone who is confident, healthy, disciplined, or successful, their actions tend to reflect that identity. Over time, these behaviors reinforce the self-perception that produced them. Identity influences everyday decisions. The way a person communicates, dresses, moves, and interacts with the world often reflects how they perceive themselves internally. When someone begins to align their actions with the identity they wish to embody, those behaviors gradually become natural and automatic. For instance, individuals who identify strongly with health and well-being are more likely to make choices that support those values. Similarly, someone who views themselves as focused and disciplined may naturally adopt behaviors that reinforce productivity and long-term goals. In this way, identity acts as a filter for decision-making. When certain behaviors no longer align with the person someone believes they are becoming, those behaviors tend to lose their appeal. Number 5. Reframe challenges. Difficulties and setbacks are inevitable parts of life. However, research on the psychology of luck suggests that people who consider themselves fortunate often interpret challenges differently from those who see themselves as unlucky. The work of psychologist Richard Wiseman, who has studied the behavioral patterns associated with perceived luck, indicates that individuals who believe they are lucky tend to interpret obstacles as redirections or temporary detours rather than permanent failures. This shift in interpretation can produce meaningful psychological benefits. When challenges are perceived as opportunities for growth, or as part of a broader narrative, stress responses may decrease, and resilience may increase. This mindset encourages persistence, adaptability, and creative problem-solving. Human beings are naturally driven by exploration and growth. In many ways, challenge and uncertainty are essential components of meaningful experiences. When life is interpreted as a story, obstacles often function as turning points that contribute to personal development rather than barriers that define the outcome. Number 6. Savor small joys. Another concept frequently discussed in positive psychology is savoring. Savoring refers to the ability to slow down and fully experience positive moments. It is considered one of the most effective, yet underused practices for increasing long-term happiness. In modern life, many individuals move rapidly from one task to another, rarely pausing to absorb the present moment. However, when attention is intentionally directed towards simple experiences, such as enjoying the taste of coffee, noticing the sound of rain, or appreciating the warmth of sunlight, the brain processes these moments more deeply. During these pauses, the brain may release neurotransmitters and hormones associated with well-being, including dopamine and oxytocin, which are linked to pleasure, bonding, and emotional stability. Over time, these small experiences accumulate. They gradually shape an emotional baseline that becomes calmer, more secure, and more optimistic. Instead of constantly seeking intense stimulation or dramatic achievements, savoring encourages appreciation for the ordinary moments that make up everyday life. Through this practice, individuals may cultivate a deeper sense of presence and fulfillment within the experiences that already surround them. Number 7. Create small adventures. Another important principle involves introducing novelty into everyday life. Psychologically, new experiences stimulate the brain's dopaminergic system, which is associated with motivation, reward, and curiosity. When the brain encounters something new, such as exploring a different place, trying a new cafe, or walking a different route, it activates neural pathways related to interest and engagement. Small changes in routine can interrupt patterns of stagnation and repetition. Human behavior is highly influenced by habit loops. Once the brain learns a repeated pattern, it tends to automate the process. This is why people sometimes arrive home after driving a familiar route and barely remember the journey. The brain recognizes the pattern and shifts into an automatic mode. While this efficiency is useful, excessive repetition can lead to experiences feeling blurred together, as if life is moving forward without leaving distinct memories. Novelty plays a crucial role in preventing this effect. New experiences create stronger memory encoding in the brain, allowing moments to feel more vivid and meaningful. Individuals who regularly introduce small adventures into their lives, whether through exploration, creativity, or spontaneous experiences, often appear more vibrant and energized. This sense of curiosity and openness can create a natural sense of magnetism in social and personal interactions. Number 8. Trust your intuition. Another key element associated with the lucky girl mindset is learning to trust intuition. Intuition is often described in mystical terms, but many psychologists interpret it as the brain's ability to process large amounts of subconscious information and translate it into rapid judgments or feelings. These intuitive signals are influenced by accumulated experiences, pattern recognition, and subtle cues from the environment. When individuals repeatedly ignore their instincts and rely entirely on external opinions, their confidence in their own judgment may weaken. However, when people begin to acknowledge and respect these internal signals, trust in their own decision-making tends to strengthen. This growing self-trust often leads to increased confidence. Confidence, in turn, influences how individuals navigate uncertainty. Much like a skilled navigator learning to read the stars, repeated decision-making builds familiarity with one's own internal guidance system. Research in psychology has also suggested that intuitive decisions, especially in familiar contexts, can sometimes lead to faster and surprisingly accurate outcomes. Over time, learning to recognize and respond to the body's subtle signals can become a valuable tool for navigating complex situations. Number 9. Embrace detachment. Detachment is another concept often emphasized in discussions about the lucky girl mindset. In psychological terms, excessive attachment to specific outcomes can create tension and stress within the nervous system. When individuals feel compelled to chase a result, a person, or an opportunity with intense urgency, the body may interpret this state as a form of scarcity or threat. This heightened state can activate stress responses and make decision-making less clear. Detachment, however, does not mean indifference or lack of care. Instead, it involves maintaining effort while releasing the need to control every outcome. From a neurological perspective, attachment to rewards can create cycles driven by dopamine and stress hormones. When expectations become overly rigid, disappointment and anxiety may intensify. In contrast, when individuals approach goals with openness and trust, the nervous system can remain in a more balanced parasympathetic state, which supports creativity, social connection, and calm focus. This relaxed state often makes a person appear more confident, composed, and naturally attractive in their interactions with others. Detachment, therefore, becomes less about withdrawal and more about maintaining internal stability while allowing opportunities to unfold. Number 10. Celebrate wins, especially the small ones. The final principle involves recognizing and celebrating progress, even in small forms. In neuroscience, acknowledging achievements can reinforce positive feedback loops in the brain. Each time progress is recognized, the brain releases neurotransmitters associated with reward and motivation. This reinforcement strengthens the neural pathways connected to productive behaviors. When individuals pause to acknowledge small accomplishments, such as completing a task, maintaining a healthy habit, or achieving a minor milestone, they reinforce the belief that progress is occurring. Over time, these small acknowledgments accumulate and strengthen self-perception. Celebrating small victories is not necessarily about external recognition or applause from others. Instead, it reflects an internal recognition of effort, discipline, and growth. By consciously acknowledging progress, individuals reinforce their own sense of capability and self-worth. This internal validation can become a powerful motivator for continued action and long-term development.